Hello, we're here again. It's week 4. You are at Peaceful Homeschool Podcast with Emma and Beth. I'm Emma.
And I'm Beth.
Hi, Beth.
Hi.
Last week we talked about pulling your kids out of school and whether you could and how to do it and when you could do it. And like you could do it anytime. Just make sure you're following the rules of your state. Don't forget that. And there were some links attached to that, so you could make sure you were doing what you need to do and kind of give you some guidance there as needed. And then today we are talking about what your schedule might look like once you are a homeschooler or a home educator or whatever you want to call yourself, a homeschool homie. Because like homeschooling could look like a lot of different things. Like a lot. So do you need it to look like public school at home? Do you want it to look public school at home?
No. Well, I don't. I thought when I first started homeschooling that it was supposed to look like public school at home so that I could say that I did a good job. I thought that meant I was doing a good job and then I wasn't going to fail my child if I had him sitting down several hours a day for kindergarten. And it was terrible. I know. I feel so bad still. I wish I could go back and fix it, but it didn't last very long that way. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't think that that's the easiest or healthiest way or the most productive way personally, but.
Okay. So like, if we think about what public school, the time spent at public school, it's a lot different than what is needed to spend at home to educate our kids. Even if you thought, I'm going to educate my kids exactly according to state standards for 5th grade for my state, I'm going to do it exactly the same as public school. Would you need to spend 7 hours a day, 5 days a week for 9 months to accomplish that goal? No. Like, because you also have a lot of time at school spent doing other things, like switching between subjects or, calling kids back in from a break or an assembly, or I don't really know. I have not been to public school in like over 30 years. So I cannot remember exactly what the schedules look like for public school. But I know that there's a lot of time spent waiting for kids to line up, waiting for kids to get settled, waiting for the teacher to help somebody who's struggling. There's a lot of waiting going on, at least in what I remember in school.
Yes, I remember that too.
And there's a lot of time spent switching gears between activities or subjects or whatever. And when you're schooling your kids at home, even if you said, I'm going to do this exactly like they do it at public school in terms of getting this exact same curriculum done or whatever it was, it wouldn't take you that long. It wouldn't take your kids that long because they're not spending time doing all those things. They're not waiting for the slowest, group of kids in the class. They're not being sped along with the highest group of kids in the class. They're working at their level, doing it at their speed, what they need to do. And it just doesn't look the same.
No. Another thing that's really cool is if your child ends up really into a book they're reading about history or science, they don't have to stop if they don't want to. Whereas when you're in a class, you have to be doing what the other kids are doing. And so you could interrupt learning time a lot when you have to change gears. You're like, oh, I have to stop learning about volcanoes and do math right now.
Yes. It's true. That's like such a good point too, because I have kids that don't, that kind of take a little bit longer to process before they move forward. And that doesn't mean they're necessarily slow at things, because then they can speed through what they're trying to get through if they already know it. But even, for example, with art, I have one child, all 3 of my kids are very creative and very artistic. I'm like in awe of them because they really have these great gifts in art. But I have one child in particular that like she is so super creative. That is her passion. She makes amazing things out of clay, and her drawings and her art and her paintings and the things she upcycles and makes and the sewing that she does and so many cool things. And so when we are doing art, if we go to a class, we normally, where we live now, we try and go to a ceramics place. I will give them a shout out. Their name is Art Zone in Nixa, Missouri. They're the bomb. I love those ladies. They're super patient, and they're just it's very therapeutic to go there and sit and just create out of clay or paint these ceramics. And so my daughter, that is especially creative, she will go and she will kind of spend some time thinking, and it kind of looks like she's doing nothing except like kneading some clay with her hands. And then all of a sudden she does this thing, and she just creates this amazing thing out of clay, and then she paints it and it looks awesome. So those same ladies were teaching a class at the rec center near us for homeschoolers. And so we signed up for their series of classes and we went, and one day when they were doing clay, and one day they were doing painting, and one day they were doing something else cool that I cannot currently remember. But that class is only an hour long. When we go to Art Zone, we normally spend about 3 hours, and we make our creation and whatever, and it's awesome. When we went to the 1 hour class, my girls could not finish in time. And my daughter, that's especially creative, especially for her, she's like, how would I finish this in this period of time? And so that made me think, like with your comment, like for sure, if we were sitting in a public school class and she has this amazingly creative mind and can make these amazingly creative things, it would be like, well, you didn't finish, and you didn't finish, and you didn't finish because you were sitting there not starting because you didn't have the time, because we had that limited time. And it's been kind of an eye-opener for my kids to be like, oh, we have to finish this at home. Oh, we got to finish this one at home. Oh, we got to finish this one at home. But when we're just at home doing our learning, she can sit there for 5 hours if she wants to and create like a mad woman.
Yeah. It's amazing when you have the flexibility to give your kids the things they can learn and do.
Yeah. And like, I can't imagine if I was having to tell her every time, like, no, you only have 1 hour. You can't go past that. Like, you just have to be done. That would probably be super frustrating. Like, I wonder how that would like stunt her creativity in this way that she's so super passionate that might kind of take that creativity or that fire out of her for that.
Or
that she might get me thinking about that.
Or that if she doesn't finish in time, that she might come to the conclusion that she's not good at art. Like,
yeah,
just thinking like, oh, the other kids all finished and I didn't, I must not be good at this. But when it's the complete opposite.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Beth, for that insight. You're so smart.
Whatever.
You are. Get real. Okay. So I don't remember what we were talking about. We were talking about sit down schoolwork and a schedule. And if your schedule has to look like public school at home, or if it can look completely different. Because normally in public school, and again, I'm kind of trying to remember back like a really, really, really long time, to when I was in school, because my kids have never gone to school. Like, so you do math and you do language arts and you do science and you do history, and then maybe you do a little bit of something else once a week, like music or art or PE or whatever. Does that sound about right?
That sounds right to me, but I haven't been I've been, it's less time than you, but since I've been.
Oh, whatever. Barely lifetime with me, like barely. And you can see my finger, it's like a tiny little inch of less time, but nice try.
I know.
Yes. So yeah. Then between each subject, kids are getting like settled into whatever's being done for that subject. Then at the end of that prescribed period of time, you're then putting away whatever that stuff is and getting out the stuff for the next subject. And then how do you do that if everybody is not at the same level and you're managing 30 kids or whatever? Like, teachers are really like be on the ball. Like, I have to give them props because 30 kids that you're trying to manage at all different levels, that would be super hard.
Yeah, it would be very hard to do. I think that's one of the things that is so challenging for them, is because they probably feel inadequate when they want to be able to work with kids at so many different levels, and there's just not enough time. There's just not enough time in the day to handle that many.
Yeah, that would be tricky. And so then on the flip side is, if we're at homeschooling our kids, you know, and I have 2 or 3 kids, depending upon the year. Well, not that like different years, I had a different number of kids, but now that I have a graduate, you know, thinking about, I just share my time between those kids and how I'm able to do that and how they work at their level, at their ability level, which may or may not correlate with their grade level, and that makes no difference. They work at their level and they are able to just keep going. And if they get stuck, I'm able to help them. And if they are working through it really fast because they've already mastered it, then they can just keep going on. They don't have to wait for somebody else to catch up to them. They don't have to wait for the next set of instructions. They just keep working.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're thinking about whether to have a public school at home schedule, whether you need one, and what that would look like if it did, or if you're going to choose something else.
I say you choose something else.
Beth you're the boss of you now, and she's going to tell you choose something else. No, I mean, just, and obviously we know. Yes, well, I was going to say, we have known a lot of homeschoolers over the years, a lot. And there for sure are plenty who do public school at home, and that works for their family. We know a large majority who do not do quote unquote public school at home, and that works for their family. And so I get it when Beth is saying, don't do it, because it doesn't work for my family.
When I really think about it, though, when I think about all the people we've known that have really done hardcore public school at home schedules, all their kids are back in public school now. I don't know anybody that has stuck it out the whole way.
Huh, you might be right about that.
Yeah, so I think that people burn out really fast that way. It's a hard choice.
I could see how that would be really hard.
Yeah. So you can do it. It might be a lot harder than it needs to be for you, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see how it could cause burnout for the parent. It could cause burnout for the children. Like, you know, having that stress. I mean, part of why we don't have our kids in public school is because of the stress, you know, in some cases. And so adding that back on when we don't need it, I mean, it doesn't work for my family. It could work for certain families, but
see, I'm more opinionated, and Emma's the sweet, like, everybody just, you know, is free to make their own choice. And that's the right thing. I mean, everybody is free to make their own choice, but I'm just here to be bossy, I guess. So I'm just here to save the children. I'm here to save the kids.
Anyway, so if you don't do public school at home, quote unquote, what would schooling at home look like for you? Wow. Oh my gosh, that's like so, like, it's mind-blowing to me what that could look like, because I know that in my house it can look different from day to day. But thinking like people who school their kids while they travel around the country, or while they travel around the world, or while they go to Australia for 3 months out of the year and visit their family, like whatever it is, like, it's mind-blowing. People who have kids who are homeschooled, who you know, they're gonna go on to become Olympians or something. You know, maybe they run track, maybe they have kids that are in gymnastics or something, and they're doing that so many hours of every day. Like, it looks so different for everybody.
Yeah, it does. And that's the beauty of it. Just being able to be flexible and customize your child's education to your life is amazing. And to still have your child be successful and happy and thriving that way. And it's so cool, you guys. It's just so amazing.
It's true. It's totally true. And I think the cool thing too is that it can look different every single year.
Mm-hmm.
In my house, it has looked different every single year. It depends on, what my kids want to do that year, what they want to learn about, how they want to go about learning about that. It looks different, from semester to semester. It can look different every single day or every single minute. Okay, so let's talk about some ways that learning can look different than public school at home. So say, that you want to have your kids do like their core work every day. Maybe you want them to do math and language arts learning of some type every day. Maybe you want them to do some science and history every day. What can that look like? Like, how can you learn history that's not just reading out of a history textbook and answering the quiz at the end?
My kids, their favorite way was actually, and they liked it for years, was the story of the world for the classical child. And we would buy it we bought the CDs. Now you can buy the MP3s now.
You can? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And
fancy.
And they have like some cool map work you can do. Like they have, it's a set that you can buy. And we would buy the whole set. They have 4 sets. So you can have like 4 years worth, but my kids did it several times. We repeated them because each time that you repeat it, you can go in more in depth for the older kids. So my 4-year-old was doing the same program my 8-year-old was doing, and they were both learning and enjoying it, but they were both having different activities to do. Well, they could do the same activities, but some of the work that they would do, like my daughter might do a coloring page with the history lesson on it. And then my son might take a chapter test on it. And then we could do a fun learning hands-on activity with it. It's a fantastic program. It's one of my most favorite ones. And my kids still remember the things they learned. And that was one that was so much fun because my son, before he was really solid with reading, would take the book and go listen to the CD at the same time he was reading it. And he would just listen for hours and loving it and run out and tell us like all these exciting facts he learned. Did you know about the mummies or whatever it was? That was really fun. Apparently he talks like an old man. I don't know.
Cool. Apparently, yes. I've heard him since he was little. He's like an old man. No, I totally agree. And if you get Story of the World, oh my gosh, like the activity book, like the bomb, you cannot leave out the activity book because that's where all the really cool hands-on things are. Like it's the best. Don't leave it out. Like you totally have to do it.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. You could talk too.
The activities.
I was going to say like.
Go ahead.
Okay, fine. I was going to say that we also did it as a co-op for a while with other homeschoolers in our area. And so like each mom would pick, like they would have 2 chapters to do or whatever. And you would do the reading at home alone. I'm not alone. You would do the reading at home ahead of time. Yes, not like alone. You have to sit in your cage or something and read the story of the world. No, but you would do the reading ahead of time, and then everybody would come to class, and then it would be like, oh, this mom is presenting the topic with these hands-on activities that everybody could do together, whether that was building a shelter out of the materials that were on hand or making like out of sand the system of waterways in the Nile area. Like so many cool things that were great to do as a group too. And the kids were of such varied ages because like Beth said, that program is meant to be used for various ages. So if you are schooling kids of different ages, that's a great one to use for history. It's super awesome. And your older kids can just have a greater takeaway from it. And everybody can do the fun hands-on learning or baking or listening to the music or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, what were we going to say?
I was just going to say that program is also great because most of the supplies you need are things you normally would have on hand. It's not
true.
It's not overly complicated. It's not crazy stuff. And it's not usually a ton of prep, which is really important because the more in depth you get sometimes with crazy prep, the more you'll burn out too. So yeah,
Yeah,
keep it simple.
that's true. I've
You don't
definitely
have
found that to
to,
be the case.
yeah. And that doesn't necessarily, going overboard on anything doesn't necessarily mean a better educational experience. So, but anyway,
Right. Just means you get burnt out quicker.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this totally does not have to do with what we're talking about right now, but honestly, when you're creating a plan, if that's what you do, for educating your kids at home, it shouldn't be something that is burning you out. Hopefully you can create something or keep tweaking it until it's not burning you out, until it's just a lifestyle of learning all the time through amazing, fun ways that your family enjoys. Not like some crazy strict schedule. They're like, oh my gosh, we have to do this. You're going to be behind. We have to do this, or we can't do that. You know, it's not there to inspire tons of stress in your household and make your household not be a joyful, peaceful place to be.
Right. And if you're more worried about like the pictures you're going to get to put on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, because that happens, guys, like where we get so caught up in, look at what my, amazing homeschool day was all about, but you
Yeah.
miss the point of it being fun and the kids learning, then that might not be, your ultimate goal. Take tons of fun pictures of all the cool things you're doing, but
Right.
just make sure it's balanced and that you're actually educating more than you are getting likes. I might take that part out.
That's true. It's true. Okay, so we talked about how cool it can be to like do history all together and learning all together. So maybe you're doing that in your day along with, if you choose to do your other core subjects in the day. Maybe you decide that your kids work better, like my kids have done many times throughout the years. They really like to work in blocks of learning because they don't like the switching back and forth in their brains between, oh, I was just learning this math, but now I need to switch into like doing my language arts. But then when I switch back to math, I don't really remember what I was doing. And just switching gears, they feel like they can make a lot more progress and really stay engaged in the subject if they stay within one subject. So they will sometimes say like, hey, can I just do this entire book first? And I'm like, absolutely. If you want to do your entire science book first, that's what we'll do. Or maybe you choose just science and language arts and we're going to do all of that this semester or until you're done with each one or whatever. But it's cool because we can totally choose that. If that works best for them, we can totally say, yes, absolutely. We can work in blocks if you want to. Or if they do say, oh, I don't like spending too much time on one subject. I want to switch to something else. My brain gets bored, whatever. Sure. Let's go back to doing, each subject each day if that's what works best for them. It's like so cool.
It reminds me. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is kind of this talking about this is reminding me of like when I was in like 7th grade and that's the first time we were switching classes throughout the day. And I remember sometimes we'd just be in the beginning of like something so exciting in science or something. And then we'd have to stop and clean up and put everything away because we only had a 45-minute class or however long it was. And and it was just so lame to have to stop during something so fun. So I just kind of supporting that. But that's another, when you're in public school and you have shorter hours in some of the classes, some of the ones you were in there way too long. But there's times that you don't want to stop the learning and you have to. So
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like totally. And I mean, that really is some of the freedom, and you don't have to get stuck into that public school mindset of, I have to do it the way I grew up in public school or the way I see public school being run. You really do have the freedom to decide that with your kids.
Yep. Freedom.
Okay, so you're doing your different classes, whatever you're, doing whatever you feel like is needed with your kids, but keeping in mind that the amount of time that it takes to get through schoolwork when you're homeschooling does not require 7 hours. And we have like a little graphic that hopefully and if I say we, I mean Beth, will be able to put up to kind of show like a basic outline. I've referred to various little graphics like this throughout the years with my kids, just as a reminder that, when you're homeschooling, Like when you're homeschooling a kindergartner, you don't need to sit down for 7 hours a day at a desk and try to do a bunch of bookwork. Like if you're sitting down for, half an hour, 45 minutes, if you're taking breaks and then doing a little bit more sit down work, whatever, that's a much more realistic amount of time to ask a kindergartner to sit down and do sit down work. That doesn't mean they're only learning half an hour or 45 minutes a day.
Yeah.
That means they are then doing PE by jumping on the trampoline. They are learning math and life skills by baking in the kitchen with you after lunch. They are doing science projects. What?
Yeah. Playing games.
Yeah, playing games, which there are so many skills learned by playing games. I mean, they're, listening to an audiobook, they're watching an educational video on an animal, whatever it is. There are so many amazing things that can be done that do not involve sitting down doing bookwork at a desk or table all day long.
Agreed.
Like for sure, do not get stuck in that mindset once you have your kids at home.
Yeah. And the more educational things available to your kids, the more they will use them. The less you have of the fluff toys, I guess, like that. I mean, I love those too. The kids really have fun and can learn from those as well. But like having more educational things available, that's what they'll be drawn to. In my experience, that's what I've noticed. Yeah. And it's just really amazing to watch them love learning and go from thing to thing and learn, and that by playing, and it's so amazing. Kids really do love learning when they're just given the time to do it.
Yeah, totally. And when you're force feeding that to them, it doesn't always stick. No. But when they're interested and they are reaching out and those educational opportunities are available to them, it's much more likely to stick.
Yeah.
But just a reminder that you don't have to feel like, if you don't have page after page after page of bookwork that's being produced every day, that doesn't mean your kids are not learning, that they're not being educated. If they're doing an online math game, that can count as math. If they are reading for hours at bedtime, that can count as reading. I have 2 kids that I don't know how many times I've had to say, actually 3 kids now, that I'm like, it is midnight. Put the books away and go to bed so you can get up at a decent time. Like, oh my gosh, you were supposed to be doing blah, blah, blah. And now you're just you've been in here reading a book this entire time. I love that my kids love to read. I love to read. But sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, you're reading. That's all you're doing is reading. But it's so awesome because they learn so much through reading, and it counts as education. It's part of their learning. They're learning about different places and different ways that people interact with each other. They're learning vocabulary. They're learning so many amazing things. Especially if you get historical fiction, they're really learning a lot. So much so don't underestimate the value of reading and that being part of their education, and not just you are forced to read for 20 minutes per night and then you are forced to write a little book report for me. No. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's part of their learning also. And another thing is that if you have a kid that struggles with reading, I have one kid that has struggled to read because of certain issues that she has going on. And I was very hesitant to let her read graphic novels because what I thought they were was just basically a comic book, probably a lot of cursing, which we don't really do. Just not really a lot of educational value in those books. And so I was really hesitant to kind of get into that world. And once I started checking them out, because I recognized oh my gosh, some of these are actual classic novels written in graphic form, which doesn't mean graphic in the way you think it means. It means they're drawn out and they still have the words there too. Oh my gosh, it was a game changer. It was such a game changer. She loves to read so much now. In our new area, we went to the library and she's checking out all these tons of books. And I'm like, oh, my heart is so awesome. Happy. I know, it makes me so happy. And I'm thinking she's doing something productive. That was air quotes again. And I go in her room and I'm like, what is it you're doing in here? She's like, oh, sorry, I've been reading this whole time. And I'm like, oh, it's so amazing. It makes your heart so happy.
That is so awesome.
Like so happy. I know. It's like, honestly, it's so amazing. And so just finding that way that it worked for her really has helped her to just move forward in that area, and just really, she loves it so much now. I'm so glad. And I'm so glad that like I got over the thing of, worrying that it was not really reading if she was seeing it in picture form along with the words. Okay, so also things like writing letters to a friend or a relative, writing thank you cards, getting a pen pal, those can all count as language arts. If you're going to parkour class, or if you're skating at the roller skating rink, if you're swimming, jumping on the trampoline, all of that counts as PE, which I'm not sure how much PE is in public schools anymore. I know when I was in public school, it was not something you got often most years. Our kids can do PE every day. It's part of their school. It's part of taking care of their bodies and being healthy.
Yeah, and it should be part of it.
That stuff counts.
It's a good habit.
Yeah. So you don't have to sit down and do bookwork 7 hours a day. You can learn throughout the day, every day. You can learn on the weekends. You can learn on holiday breaks. You can learn in the summertime. Learning. It's about learning. It's not about sitting down and doing bookwork that you're going to have a nice fat pile of, so you can be like, my kid is so productive because he did all of these things that he maybe already knew and I made him do it anyway. No, if he already knows them, don't do it. Like, be like, he already knows it. But the goal is actual learning. It's not necessarily school. The goal is learning.
Yeah.
For our kids.
Yep. And it's really awesome when they enjoy it and grasp those things, and those light bulbs are firing. Do light bulbs fire?
Absolutely.
So.
Okay, so I think that pretty much covers our topic for today. If you have questions, like, don't email us, because I don't know how you would email us. Like, how do you do that, Beth? Make a note, comment. That's how it is. Comment. If you have questions, comment, and we can respond to you. If you want to hear other topics, let us know. Feel free to share and like and subscribe and do all of the things, and leave us a review if it's helpful to you.
You can also go on the website and check out the blog post, and there is a contact form on there now. So if you do want to contact us through the website, you can. But commenting on Facebook and Instagram and things like that is fun if you want more interaction with other people, other homeschoolers.
For sure.
The website's peacefulhomeschool.com. If I didn't say that. We're going to have a graphic on the show notes that will have, like, it's kind of like a little chart that just kind of has an idea of how many minutes a day that your different, your grade, whatever grades, whatever grade your kids in. And that fix that I just did.
We don't really know, because we're homeschoolers. We don't know what grade they're in. What do you even call that thing? Yes, the grade they're in.
Yeah, it'll, like, so that you can kind of get an idea of how much at home learning time, and not learning time, they learn all day long, but sit down time that they would have for learning or schooling, teaching, productive.
Yeah. Well, and like really what's realistic.
Yeah.
Just keep saying random stuff. And there's some other great things, and I'll see if I can find them. There's like an x-ray of a child's hand when they're like kindergarten age or whatever, and how the bones are, and how a lot of kids are not prepared by that age to sit down and do formal writing, and expecting them to do that in your homeschooling might be a little bit much. And so I can tell you, as a mom of a child who hated writing, like, oh my gosh, please don't make me write anything, I came up with super creative ways to help him, like, be interested in writing something. But it was awesome, because then when he was older and decided that writing is something he wanted to do, he started writing and just like went crazy, and he's like an amazing writer now. And so, like, pushing our kids into doing something, there may be a reason why they're not quite able to do it when we're asking them. They may not be quite ready to be doing what we're asking them. So hopefully I can find that too, and we can kind of share that with you guys as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you all for listening.
Okay.
We're grateful for
Yay.
you.
We are. It's true. We totally are. We totally are. This is awesome.